plan?
It's a great plan.
Okay.
Let me just tell you some of the things that we'll be able to do with this plan. But first, you need to know why it's important to people in our community.
Okay.
In our community, unemployment is at about 16+%. That's a lot. Unemployment in some other communities, for example, in the Maine is 9.1%. African Americans are 12% of the workforce and 22% of the unemployed. African Americans, their children, the young people, have unemployment at about 45.5% thereabout. For African Americans, it hits harder because of the wealth gap. African Americans have a typical household has about $5,677 in wealth. $5,677. The average white household has $113,149. 20 times what the average African American household has. So there's a crisis because African Americans still have to have food, clothing, and shelter like others, but they don't have wealth that they can draw from. They don't have stocks. They don't have the wealth in some other form that they can draw from. So this bill is going to help African Americans get jobs because jobs are important to African Americans. They're important to everybody. But when you have a low wealth, a low amount of wealth, it becomes even more important to you because it's your lifeline. It's your lifeline to education. It's your lifeline to health care. It's your lifeline to all of the things that are we call necessities: food, clothing, and shelter. Now, having said that, here's what this bill does. This bill will provide jobs in infrastructure rehabilitation, if you will. We've got to repair the infrastructure across the length and breadth of the country. Bridges, roads, even waterways. When this is done, they provide jobs for people to actually work to get this kind of thing done. So that's important. But also this bill goes way beyond this. It provides for people who are unemployed to create their own jobs. You see, it's one thing to look for a job, but if there's not one there, then you look at the work that has to be done and maybe you can create a job. This bill has a means by which states can work with people to create their own jobs. This bill provides for maintaining teachers on the job. It has billions of dollars in place so that teachers and firefighters and police officers will be able to keep their jobs. And that's important because when they lose their jobs, they don't spend at the grocery store, the various places that they spend their money. That means that those businesses will start to lay off people, which means that the unemployment rate continues to go up. This bill also provides for people who are working with industry. For example, small businesses. Small businesses will get a tax credit if they will hire a person who's been unemployed for, say, 6 months. You get a $4,000 tax credit. If that person happens to be a veteran, you get a $5,600 tax credit. If that veteran has been unemployed and is disabled, it's $9,600. So the bill gives small businesses an incentive to bring people on board. And it also says to the small business owner, if you need some capital improvement, you need to buy equipment, you can expense that. That means you can write it off, and you can write off up to 100% of some of your expensing, buying new equipment so that you can continue with your business, continue to maintain your business. So this bill is so inclusive, and I'm proud of President Obama for presenting something that is inclusive. Now, some people have had a problem with it because the president has said, you know, everybody ought to pay a fair share of taxes. And there's something called the Buffett rule. His secretary was paying more in taxes than he was. So the president has said, look, let's have everybody pay a fair share of taxes. And if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, let's not have you pay less of a percentage than your secretary. And so that's drawn a lot of fire. But I think the president is trying to do his best to be fair to everybody, but to make sure everybody has a job. Because in the final analysis, it does you little good to have a PhD if you don't have a J-O-B. If you don't have a J-O-B so that you can E-A-T.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Why do you support the creation of an infrastructure bank?
Because right here in Houston, we will benefit. We've got rail lines that we need to complete.
Okay.
We have something called the 90A rail line, which runs from over near Fannin all the way out to the Beltways going south along 90A. That rail line will put just hundreds of people to work.
Yeah, right.
If we get that infrastructure bank and we get that rail line as a part of the project, architects and engineers are going to get jobs. Then you'll have to lay the line. You'll have workers out there laying those lines. People are going to have to manufacture the trains that will run on the lines.
Right,
so the infrastructure bank will create a domino impact on hiring because it will start with the architects, the engineers, and then go all the way down to the person who drives the spike into that rail. So it's a wonderful concept, and I'm fully supportive of it. And Senator Hutchinson in this state is supportive of it. She's working with Senator Kerry on an infrastructure bank project. May not be this exact one, but they have a bill for an infrastructure bank. So it's just the sheer number of jobs that will be created, and our ship channel will benefit from the infrastructure bank. We have to continually clear it, and we have to widen it, and we have to make sure that it's passable. It will help us with our ship channel as well.
That's great. That's
That
great.
is
That's
great.
great. Now, we're going to spend these last few minutes. We've got a few minutes left. This is a topic that I know we need to talk about. And this one, I want you to speak directly to our audience, the topic on voter ID in Texas.
Yeah.
Let us know the important factors about the new voter ID here in Texas.
I want the audience to know this. Dear friends, the law has been changed in the state of Texas such that many of you, when you go in to vote, you're going to find that you will not be able to vote if you don't have a photo ID that is issued by the state or recognized by the state. You must have a photo ID. Now, if you're a senior citizen, there was an attempt to get an exemption for senior citizens. It appears that that exemption didn't go through. So if you're 90 years old, been voting all your life, the precinct judge knows you, you've got your voter registration card, you've got your light bill, your gas bill, your water bill, your phone bill, everybody knows you live right across the street. You will still have to have the photo ID. There are some exceptions that have been made in terms of a state-issued ID. You can go and get an ID that will be issued to you free of cost, but you still have to go down to the DPS office. And if you've been there when I've been there, you've seen very long lines. And sometimes those lines can take hours. So we've got to make sure that we get in early to get these IDs so that we can vote. Now, I'm opposed to this law, and I'm going to fight it. I'm going to be a part of those who are looking at how we can sue so that we can prevent this law from becoming effective next year. That's when it will take effect, because there are many people who will show up without that photo ID. They'll be given a provisional ballot. They will vote, but then they have to come back in 6 days with the proper identification. Many people won't come back. In a close election where candidates of importance to the community are on the ballot, we will probably not have the kind of outcome that we would want. So I'm begging people to please, first, you go out and get your ID to make sure you can vote. Know that there are others of us who are going to challenge this. We're going to challenge it to try to prevent it from happening. But if it does happen, we want to make sure that people are ready, that they are registered, but they also have this photo ID recognized by the state. If you are a person who's a naturalized citizen, you can use your naturalization paperwork with the photo ID on it. If you are a person who happens to have a gun permit, you can use that photo ID. However, if you're a student at, say, Prairie View or Texas Southern University, you can't use your student ID. You have to have your driver's license. You have to have your Texas Department of Public Safety ID that can be issued to you, or you can have this special ID that is given to you at no cost just for voting, but it will have an expiration date on it. So please prepare yourselves for the upcoming election. Not enough to register now. You must also have a photo ID.
That is great.
Now,
That is great.
are you concerned that all of these rules can disenfranchise the members, our minorities, and our seniors in the communities?
I say to you without question, reservation, hesitation, or equivocation, it will have an impact on our community. A greater impact because studies have shown that we have more people who don't have driver's licenses and photo IDs, or a birth certificate that somehow will help you to get the ID. You see, when you go to get these IDs, you've got to prove that
you are.
that's exactly
Right,
right.
right.
Prove who you
Many
are.
people don't have the necessary documentation to prove who they are. If you're at 95 years old, I have one senior in my district that's over 100 years old that votes. So I'm going to have to check with her to make sure she has the ID. If she doesn't,
Right.
then maybe she wasn't born in a hospital. You know, there were
Exactly.
many people who weren't. And many people don't have documentation to support the notion that they ought to have this photo ID. So we're going to have some difficult challenges that we'll have to deal with, and it will suppress the vote.
Now, is this for the state of Texas only, or is this nationwide?
No, we have more than 30 states that are doing this now. This is something that was conceived when a group of folk had a conference, it seems, and they left that conference and decided they would go back to their various states and implement this idea of having a photo ID. It's not something that I support because in North Dakota, you don't have to register to vote.
Wow.
In North Dakota, if the precinct judge knows who you are, you don't have to present any identification.
Wow.
In North Dakota, it is so relaxed because they want to encourage people to vote. They are interested in being inclusive and getting as many people to vote as possible. This tends to be exclusive. It tends to exclude people.
Yeah.
And my hope is that we can get this overturned. I will tell you that the Supreme Court has legitimized it to a certain extent, and it may take more than the Supreme Court. It may take some sort of legislation to do it. If so, we're going to try to do it with legislation. And that legislation may require a constitutional amendment. But the right to vote is so precious
Exactly.
that we ought not
Exactly.
disenfranchise people simply because of something called a photo ID when there are so many
Right.
other ways to
Right.
identify yourself.
Right.
Exactly.
And other states use these other ways.
Now, then what I'm hearing is that let's take for the communities, and you were speaking to the community. Well, I'm looking at the churches. Sunnyside alone, 55 churches in there. We need to come together. We need to talk to our people. We need to get them started now, because now is not too soon. If I'm hearing you right, now is not too soon
It is
for them
not.
to start making
Yeah.
sure that they have a photo ID. There needs to be something going on, constantly letting them know that.
Absolutely.
Don't wait till the last minute
Absolutely.
to get your photo ID, and especially with our seniors who, like you
Absolutely.
say, they're not going to stand in line all day
Absolutely.
to get a photo ID. So we need to start now, and I guess how the churches and the clergy can come together with their communities is talk to their congregations, letting them know. I know we separate church and state. I know that we do, but I don't think telling your people get a photo ID is going to cause an
It is
issue.
not. No,
It's
it is
not
not.
going to cause an issue.
It is not. You can actually say in your service, you can ask, do you have a photo ID? Everybody that doesn't have one, if you don't have one, here's information on how you can acquire it. And that's the message that we hope to bring to
Okay.
every church, get the ministers that will
Exactly.
work with us to do this, and get that message out there through the churches.
Right.
Because in the final analysis, the way we get most of these kinds of things done, I regret to say it, but we depend so much on the clergy. And I know it's an unfair burden for them to have to bear, given that they have other things that they have to do. But Pastor Nash, we appreciate you for the way you open the doors up and let the church become a place not only for saving souls, but helping souls right here, right now.
Right.
Exactly.
And this
Exactly.
photo ID issue is something that we have to take
Right.
through the churches.
Well,
that's
we've had a good show today. Oh, just a lot of information, Congressman, and we appreciate you so much for coming and explaining, and especially with the voting. The health care we need to know about.
Yeah.
The Job Act is going to help a lot of us. But this coming election is going to be so important for a lot of reasons.
Critical, right.
And we want to make sure that we get our people in place to where they should be, because they look at us sometimes and say that, oh, they're not going to go out and vote. But if we start now, Now it's not too. It's not
It
too
is
late.
not. And may
It's
I
not too
just
soon.
add this. This is going to be a very important election.
Yes, it is.
Because there are issues that will be impacted by who the next president is.
Exactly.
And here is one of the most important. The next president may appoint 1 or 2 judges to the Supreme Court. And that will create a shift one way or another in this court. And I assure you, the rest of our lives will be impacted by the next 2 appointees to the Supreme Court. So if you care about who's going to be on the Supreme Court, you care about who the next president will be.
Is going to be.
Yes,
You're right.
you really
You're
do.
right.
You really
You're
do.
right. Well, this, as we're winding down now, we're coming to the close of our show, and we want to hope that you receive something today that will be beneficial to us. And if you would like to hear more or want to know a little bit more about the show, just call 713-731-7050. Thank you.